Hey, great day, everybody. So happy November. This month, I really want to focus on how we can look at our growth process, how we can reframe past experiences and what some people may deem as mistakes as more of a reframe of training wheels to get you prepared for your next season. And so, what I'm going to be doing in this particular podcast episode and some future ones is slowing the pace down, talking about finding peace and joy in your business, but also being able to reflect back and look at some of the experiences that have grew me into the entrepreneur that I am in today. And my hope is that you will do the same and you will take a look back at your resume, at your collective experience, whether it be at a job and or in your own business, and that you see it as this is what helped you evolve into the person that you are today. And so I would highly encourage you, if you can, get your notepad out, get your pen, because as I share some things may come up for you, and I want you to jot down your aha moments. So let's go ahead and hop into it. All right, welcome y'all. So my name is Dr. TK, clinical psychologist and therapist, business coach, and mentor. And so I have been in the mental health field for over 2 decades at this point. I've pretty much worked with everybody under the sun except for working inside of a geriatric population facility, personal choice. And then also I have not worked in an inpatient hospital, but I have worked in correctional facilities and a whole lot of community mental health agencies. And then of course, I've had a private practice for over 13 years, along with a group practice that I had for 5 years, in which I supervise with licensed providers, postdocs, and master's level clinicians, 8 at a time. And so needless to say, along ways of these 2 decades, I have learned a lot. And one of the reasons why I decided to slow the pace down and start having these conversations is that sometimes when, especially with online, when people see things online and they see the receipts, the testimonials, sometimes we only look at someone's senior year and we forget that that person started off as in the 1st grade, 5th grade, middle school. Then they made it to high school, and then high school got difficult, and then they kept having to go up. And that's really how I look at the process of business. And so the story that I want to share with you today is, what did I learn from my first few $45 therapy clients? And so let me set the tone. As soon as I got licensed, I knew that I wanted to have my own private practice. And so there was not coaching available like it is now, not even people online talking about private practice the way that it is now. It was very secretive. It was our professors telling us from school, don't worry about that right now. It was me having to or choosing to go to Barnes and Nobles and buy some like private practice books. I started doing that when I was in grad school, but nobody really taught us about like marketing, entity structure, how do we build our actual infrastructure of a business, let alone how do we set up our process to see our own clients? And so I was really going based off of my own personal experience with what I was doing at my job. And at the time I was working with a lot of adolescents, and then hit or miss certain agencies I was working with adults, but a lot of transitional age youth, like 16 to 24, 25. So what I decided to do, because I really wanted to hone in on, from what I read in my books, I really wanted to hone in on one specific population. And I felt like the best population to go after were those who were over 18, but still under 25, meaning they can consent to their own treatment. But I also knew that I might run into an issue of finances, which means that I wasn't on any panels, and I knew that they may or may not be able to pay for services. So I found an office like in LA, and I knew based off the area that it was more of an affluent area from where I had lived. But I intentionally chose that location so that I can ideally still choose my targeted audience, but then they can pay private pay. Well, I ran into an issue, but it was a blessing in disguise, because I'm African American, I'm Black. And, sometimes, especially with mental health, people go to what they're comfortable with. And so my first 3 clients were transitional age youth. And I want you to hear like the specificity in terms of who I wanted to target. And I really want you to think about, when you grow, even if you have an existing practice, if you grow your business, or when you grow your business, would you rather see 5 ideal targeted audiences that you love to see, like targeted people? Or would you rather just fill your caseload because you got to pay a paycheck? And this is where I sense that when I've talked to therapists, sometimes outside of like political things and inflation, sometimes we feel like we just got to do a paycheck because we may have left our job prematurely. Some people have not stacked up any money. And, a lot of things could just play a role. Somebody's the breadwinner, nobody else around them is working or can contribute at the time, etc. Whatever the case may be, I recognize that I had a 6-figure job. And so I took full advantage of looking at my job as my first investor for my business. That's mindset shift, like at the top. Okay. So I was making 6 figures, definitely not bringing home 6 figures. I was teaching at 3 different colleges. I was also, slowly building out the private practice, building out, one client at a time. But I said, I only want to say yes to the type of clients that I want to see. So this was my targeted audience, males and females. I didn't have an ethnicity, that were 18 to 24, 25, ideally in college or trying to figure out their trade, because I'm really good with helping people flesh out their goals and desires for career. Hence, I'm a business coach for therapists right now. And my first client, I think he was 19, played basketball, and experienced some anxiety and panic attacks that also kind of spilled over into relationships. Then after that referral, none of these people knew each other, but same office. A couple of weeks later, I'm advertising on Psychology Today, I think. And I got another African-American young man who happened to play basketball again, no association, also having panic attacks. So I wasn't very good at the time marketing to a specific, diagnoses, but I think the way that I described how I worked and the techniques that I used, like a little blurb on my website, and I self-taught myself how to do a GoDaddy website at the time, that language somehow converted these individuals that were 18, 19 years old saying, hey, I want to come to services. So also, I was afraid to say my real rate. Some people I did say my real rate to, they couldn't pay it. So I kept the rate at $45. Okay. So for 2 of the young men, they were paying $45 each session. Then I realized, because I was on the brink of pretty much breaking even at this new office and I couldn't keep up with the flow plus gas and all those things, it just didn't financially make sense. So I started looking at another office, the other direction of my home, which was actually about 10 minutes away from my home. And it was more conducive to my budget. So some of those clients transferred over there until they were done with treatment. And then I got another African-American young woman in college going through a life transition that caused anxiety. So I worked with her for a very long time. $45. No. I think hers was $75 for a session. So I went 2 for $45. The third was $75. But I still did not feel any resentment or anything negative because I saw it as my training wheel. So another hack is that I started seeing my business as my job as my investor. And then these first few clients, because I know I'm good at what I do as a mental health provider, as a licensed psychologist. But in terms of me owning a business, I'm just going to self-teach myself, and I'm going to call my business my internship. So I believe that if you start looking at different streams of income that you add that require you to learn something new, and if you start looking at it as, well, I'm an internship, so what's a part of an internship? Well, at some point I might need a supervisor. So your supervisor these days can be a book, a YouTube, a podcast, but it can also be an actual coach or mentor. It can be a course. But what else do you have in an internship? You have hours that you have to accumulate. So it's always interesting that, when I listen to mental health providers talk about their expectation of the timeline of when they wanted something to come to pass, it's never in comparison to how long it took them. I'm not saying it should take you 10 years, but if it took you all these years to get all of these classes, all of these hours, pass a licensing exam, and then finally be able to go pass a job and have your own business, why wouldn't you think that it would take you some time to actually do the same in your business because you're building it from scratch? And see, here's the difference that I think a lot of therapists don't realize with any stream is you, up until this point of owning a business, had a syllabus your whole life. Think about that. When I said that to my community, like an eyebrow went up, like, oh my gosh, you're absolutely correct. When you went through K through 12, they gave you the curriculum. When you went through undergrad, they gave you the curriculum and then you followed it or you didn't, and you finished school between 4 to 6 years or plus. When you went to grad school, they gave you a very specific curriculum. Maybe you got to choose electives, but they still told you need to fill this up with 2 classes per semester. When you finished, the only curriculum that you have right now are your CEs, but you still have to maneuver that. When it comes down to running a business, there is no curriculum. which is why good programs, courses, and foundational methods, philosophies that teach you how to build the infrastructure plus the marketing of a business is key. And here's the thing, stop chasing just a template, a shortcut, get quick rich. Like, I need to earn this money back real fast. When you come with that energy, the money's going to come in and come out because you're such in a rush of just trying to learn the information that you're not actually giving yourself internship time to apply it. So all in all, when I reflect back on that time, those were some of my best clients. And guess what happened after I finished with those 3? Because some of them came on, some of them were like as needed over time, etc. But what ends up happening is, because I got really good at learning how to pay attention to what their true problem was, every time I had the chance, I would go and update my website and my Psychology Today and everywhere else I was blasting my services on. And I got really good at just learning how to talk about in regular language what I do. Not in all this psychobabble, because these young people didn't understand any of that. They didn't care about no CBT. They cared about, how can I stop thinking these negative thoughts? How can I focus on the basketball game and not on me and my girlfriend's argument? I'm having a panic attack when the coach tell me I got to go shoot the free throw for the team, but I'm having all these negative thoughts that I suck. You know what I'm saying? Like, we know we can handle that in therapy through cognitive behavioral therapy and other different, theoretical orientations, but don't nobody want to hear all that, right? So I learned a lot during that time because I saw it as my training wheels. And so I say all that to say, later on down the years up to current date, if you've been around, you know what I'm doing. I've had various contracts working with nonprofits from Northern California, Southern California, all the way to the East Coast, Maryland, DC, and Chicago. Okay. I have been able to help build out after school programs with youth on living skills, on anxiety, on emotional regulation. I do anger management workshops. Okay. And so part of my role in my business right now is that my private practice is on wheels. This is 13 plus years later. But I got the confidence for even my pricing because of the testimonials, not asked for, that my clients were pretty much showing me in therapy about how I was able to help them. So what I would like you to do is, I want you to think about, get a pen and a sheet of paper, and I want you to write out, what are you grateful for in terms of your very first experiences in the mental health field, even before business. Now, I started out with my private practice, and that's where a lot of people are, or you are growing a practice, but sometimes we lose sight of how far we've come because we're only focused on our next step like it is a checkbox. And I'm asking you, slow down, reflect, because I guarantee you, if you actually took time out to write down everything that you're proud of yourself for accomplishing your whole life, even if you just looked at your academics moving into entrepreneurship, you would be baffled if you just went online live stream and just like bragged on yourself, because you would be amazed of how many things you've accomplished, but yet you're sitting here potentially focusing on, well, I haven't made it to the next step yet. I haven't made this certain amount of money. I can't launch this product. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do that. Well, what about you perfecting the things that you do know how to do well? Are they on rinse and repeat? If you stepped away from your private practice, this is my example, and you go over to another stream of income, can your private practice still last? Yes or no? So this is what I want you to do. And I want you to comment down in the comment box. I'm going to write the word reflect. You're going to reflect on your resume and your experience, and you're going to give yourself your flowers. So I really hope that you loved this intro to our gratitude series. If you are new here, again, my name is Dr. TK. I am all about helping service providers design a life first business and beautifulness in all of their life, all in the in between. Now, if you would like a community where we're having these conversations throughout the entire month, and then we have community connection calls that we talk about finding peace and joy, designing the business that you live for, so that your business can surround your life and not the other way around, right? Because we are not working this hard in our businesses or at jobs just to like go home and go to sleep. I want you to live out your fruitfulness. And so I want you to go down to the description box or the pinned comment, check out the InHer Collective. This is our community that is for women entrepreneurs, service providers, pre-licensed, licensed, and seasoned. And we are talking about all these things but on a deeper connection. We have monthly challenges, we have affirmations, we built out a book club that we're doing. Like right now, we're talking about leveraging your time through clockwork, building up to a 2-week vacation, month vacation away from your business. Who doesn't want that? And so if you are looking for a community and you also are looking for ways to slow down and pay attention to, well, what should be my next move, and if it's going to be aligned, then that's exactly what we'll be talking about in the InHer Collective. So check that out. Join the community, subscribe to the channel, like this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.